June 28, 1914. A bright summer morning in Sarajevo, a city pulsing with life, unknowingly standing on the edge of catastrophe. No one could imagine that before the sun would set, the first domino of the greatest war in human history would fall. Set in motion not by an army, nor by a government, but by a single young man with a pistol. This is the story of the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand. The moment the world changed forever. At the dawn of the 20th century, Europe was a powder keg. The continent was armed, divided, and restless. Empires stretched across continents, held together by fragile alliances and centuries-old rivalries. Among them stood the Austro-Hungarian Empire, a sprawling patchwork of ethnicities: Germans, Hungarians, Slavs, and Croats united under an aging emperor, Franz Joseph. And his nephew, Archduke Franz Ferdinand, was next in line to inherit this uneasy throne. Ferdinand was not beloved. He was rigid, outspoken, and a reformer, a man who dreamed of giving more rights to the Slavs within the empire. But in doing so, he threatened the powerful elite who preferred things to remain exactly as they were. And beyond the borders of Austria-Hungary, in the small neighboring kingdom of Serbia, many saw him as a symbol of oppression. For years, nationalism had been rising like fire through the Balkans. Serbian nationalists dreamed of uniting all Slavic peoples. And they viewed the Austro-Hungarian Empire as their greatest obstacle. In the shadows of Belgrade, a secret society had formed. Unification or Death, better known as the Black Hand. Its members were military officers, revolutionaries, and idealists who believed that only violence could free their people from foreign rule. And in early 1914, a group of these men hatched a plan to kill the heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne. The chosen assassins were young. Among them was Gavrilo Princip, a frail 19-year-old from Bosnia, quiet, determined, and deadly serious. They smuggled pistols, bombs, and cyanide across the border. Their target, Archduke Franz Ferdinand, who would soon visit Sarajevo to inspect imperial troops. June 28, 1914, a date heavy with meaning. For the Serbs, it was Vidovdan, a national day of remembrance marking the 1389 Battle of Kosovo. A symbol of resistance against foreign domination. The Archduke's visit on that day felt like an insult to many. But for Franz Ferdinand, the trip was meant to show unity and strength. To prove that the empire's southern territories were loyal. He arrived with his beloved wife, Sophie, Duchess of Hohenberg. They rode through the city in an open-topped car, smiling and waving to the crowds. What they didn't know was that 6 assassins were waiting along the route. The motorcade glided along the Apel Quay, beside the shimmering Miljacka River. As it approached, one assassin, Nedeljko Kabranovic, hurled a bomb. But it missed. The device bounced off the Archduke's car and exploded under the next vehicle, wounding several officers and bystanders. The motorcade sped away. The plot had failed. The assassins scattered, some arrested, others disappearing into the crowd. Franz Ferdinand, shaken but calm, insisted on continuing his duties. He wanted to visit the injured at the hospital. Against all advice, the couple returned to their car. And fate guided them back into the heart of the city. It was a small mistake that sealed the world's fate. The driver took a wrong turn onto Franz Joseph Street. And by pure coincidence stopped to reverse. Right in front of Gavrilo Princip, who had been standing outside a cafe, despairing that the mission had failed. When he saw the Archduke's car stop just meters away, he couldn't believe it. He stepped forward, raised his pistol, and fired 2 shots. One bullet struck Sophie. The other pierced Franz Ferdinand's neck. "Sophie, don't die, stay alive for our children," were his last words. Moments later, both lay lifeless in the back seat. The crowd screamed, soldiers rushed in. But the world had already changed. The assassination electrified Europe. In Vienna, outrage turned to fury. In Berlin, the German Kaiser promised full support to Austria-Hungary. In St. Petersburg, Russia vowed to protect Serbia. A web of alliances began to tighten like a noose. The Austrian government issued an ultimatum to Serbia. a list of humiliating demands designed to be rejected. Serbia accepted most, but not all. And so, on July 28, 1914, Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia. Within a week, Germany declared war on Russia and France. Britain joined to defend Belgium. And what began as a regional crisis became the Great War. A storm that would consume empires, redraw maps, and kill millions. The shot in Sarajevo didn't cause the war by itself. It was the spark that lit a century's worth of gunpowder. Europe's great powers had been preparing for conflict for years. Stockpiling weapons, building alliances, and dreaming of glory. But no one imagined how fast it would all unravel. Within months, the skies were filled with planes, the seas with submarines, and the fields with trenches stretching hundreds of miles. The modern world, with its telegraphs, factories, and nationalism, had created the perfect machine for total war. Franz Ferdinand and Sophie were buried quietly in their castle at Artstetten, far from the capital. They had married for love, defying royal custom, and died side by side. Their children were left orphaned, their empire forever changed. As for the assassins, Kabranovic and Princip were captured. Too young for the death penalty, Princip was sentenced to 20 years in prison. He died of tuberculosis in 1918. Just months before the war he helped ignite finally ended. Looking back, the story feels almost impossible. That one act, one moment of anger, could set the entire world ablaze. But history often turns on such fragile hinges. A single decision. A wrong turn. A bullet fired in a crowded street. From that moment, everything changed. Empires fell. Nations were born. And the modern age of warfare began. June 28, 1914, Sarajevo. A moment frozen in time. When the Archduke's car rolled down that narrow street, the world still believed in order, glory, and reason. When it drove away, bleeding and broken, that world was gone forever. The 20th century had begun. With the bullet that changed the world.